Hey everyone, Jerry here, Balance Community, out here to talk to you about our new Modular Trick Zone. Let's check it out. Alright, so our new Modular Trick Zone is a small 5-meter segment that is to be used in the middle of a modular freestyle rig. What it essentially accomplishes is it turns your freestyle rig into a segmented highline, allowing you to select individual components for your trick zone and the 2 stretch zones that surround it, allowing you to fully customize what your freestyle kit looks like. And not only that, as you use your freestyle kit and wear through some of the components, you can individually replace certain parts of your line rather than having to fully replace the whole line when a small bit gets damaged. That's especially nice for having the trick zone, which is where you spend most of your time on freestyle highlines. Now you can just replace that segment of your line and keep the stretch zones and backup segments for the next rig and continue to use them. And so our Modular Trick Zone is comprised of 2 pieces of paradigm threaded through a 32mm sleeve, and we have two styles of the Trick Zone, and both of them have the main sewn loop coming out of the sleeve longer than the backup. The reason for that is when you connect your lines, if both of these sewn loops are around the same spot, you're going to have a high density of weight in this one location of your line on both ends of the trick zone. And that density of weight in your line can cause reverberations that make the line pretty unstable. And that's especially noticeable when you're doing big amplitude tricks. And so to help mitigate that, we've offset the loops slightly. And we made the main longer because this part of the line is going to stretch even further distancing these 2 loops when the line is rigged. And so now we don't have such a hot spot of weight. We have a connector here now and a connector here instead. And so this version of the Modular Freestyle Kit is the tensioned sleeve version. And so what we do is on each end, we have a stitch that goes through the sleeve and both pieces of paradigm. And so when this line gets tight, all 3 lines will be tensioned inside the trick zone. And that can be super nice because it gives you a really stable thing to grab for those rocket mount tricks or hand tricks, and a nice fat platform to land on for those defeat tricks. And it's just generally a really good experience to have all 3 lines under tension. And then the other option that you can choose is to have either naked loops or sleeved loops, and that's personal preference. And then the other version of the kit we have is the X-stitch version. And what that has is in the center of the trick zone, there's a single stitch that goes through all 3 webbings. Now at the end, you'll notice there's no stitch there, and the main loop is still longer than the backup. But now when you get tight, only the main line will be tensioned. The backup will be loose, and the sleeve will also be loose. And so you'll need to tape it here to keep it in place while you're doing your tricks. Some people prefer that option, so it's totally up to you which one you want to choose based on your style of freestyle. So now let's rig this up and see what it looks like under tension. All right, so we have our Modular Freestyle Trick Zone rigged here. And for our stretch segments, I'm using purple paradigm. And for the backups, I'm using secondary. So on this particular version, we have this tension sleeve. So here we can see all the lines are tight. The sleeve cannot move. And so this zone gives us a really good platform for doing freestyle tricks. And the zone started at 5 meters untensioned. And when you tension it, it'll stretch out to be a little bit more than that, about 5.5 meters. And you can see here on the naked end, or naked loops, I'm using thimbles underneath my soft connectors here. This is a 4mm grog sling, double wrapped. So it's wrapped twice there and then grogged together. And you can see I have a layer of webbing underneath there. That's the soft thimble. And without that, this bend here that's occurring would be much more substantial. And so the edges of these webbings would be under a lot more force than the center, which can cause premature failure. And that's why we use a thimble here. And that should also be done on a sleeved loop, which you can see on this side. I have sleeved loops. And even with the sleeve, it's already bending way more. And this line is not nearly at the tension what it should be for a freestyle line. That's the same connector, 4mm grog. And for the backup, you can see on this side, I've taped it to the main. I'm also using a grog and also putting thimbles in there. It's a 4mm grog double wrapped. And to tape it to the main, I like to get it as close to the connector there and do a slider tape here and here, so it kind of pinches the connector where it needs to be, and still allows it to slide there. You can see on the other side over here, I did not tape it, just to demonstrate. There's a lot of room for the loops to kind of move around, and when you have a thimble in there, it leaves this little lip right there, and sometimes the connector can catch that, which isn't the greatest. And so if you tape your loop closed in your slider tape, that prevents that from happening. Yeah, so that's the freestyle zone here. Another thing, when you're rigging this, you need to center your zone in your gap. And so the easiest way to do that is to have a web lock on the main on both ends. So you have one over there as well and over here. And if when you're taping your line, you match your tape spacings, still do random, like do 2 arm spans, 5, 3, 6, 4. That pattern of loop spacings that you do from the center towards your webbing anchor, do the same but mirrored on the other side, so that you can count loops to help center your trick zone. Yeah, and so here's a standard leash ring that's used for freestyle. It goes over these connectors real easily. And so for the connectors, you can use soft shackles if you want, or quick links if you're comfortable with that. On the backup, I would not recommend using a soft connector that can open easily, like a soft shackle. Grogs are great because they don't easily come undone. And so if you're comfortable making grogs, that is what I would recommend for the backup at the very least. They are also great for the main. But yeah, try to avoid soft shackles here unless you have a reliable way of keeping them closed. Yeah, that's the Modular Freestyle Zone. And the X-Stitch one, the other variety, rigs the same way. It just won't be tight here. So this sleeve will be able to scrunch up and down the line, up all the way to the center. And so you'll probably want to tape it here to keep it in place if you prefer that, or leave it loose if you like that. Yeah, that covers it. And so we also offer the full Modular Freestyle Kit, where you get your choice of your modular trick zone, and then you can choose your stretch zone and your backup segments for both sides. And so you can piece together everything in your kit. And what comes with the modular trick zone is just the trick zone. No connectors or soft thimbles are included in the purchase. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks for watching, and check out the website for more information.